Chapter 7, Dhyana and Samadhi, Part 2. The yogi says there is a great danger in stumbling upon this state. In a good many cases, there is the danger of the brain being deranged, and as a rule, you will find that all those men, however great they were, who had stumbled upon this superconscious state without understanding it, groped it in the dark, and generally had, along with their knowledge, some quaint superstition. They opened themselves to hallucinations. Muhammad claimed that as angel Gabriel came to him in a cave one day and took him on the heavenly horse Harak, and he visited the heavens. But with all that, Muhammad spoke some wonderful truths. If you read the Quran, you find the most wonderful truths mixed with superstitions. How will you explain it? That man was inspired, no doubt, but that inspiration was, as it were, stumbled upon. He was not a trained yogi and did not know the reason of what he was doing. Think of the good Muhammad did to the world, and think of the great evil that has been done through his fanaticism. Think of the millions massacred through his teachings, mothers bereft of their children, children made orphans, whole countries destroyed, millions upon millions of people killed. So we see this danger by studying the lives of great teachers like Muhammad and others. Yet we find at the same time that they were all inspired. Whenever a prophet got into the superconscious state by heightening his emotional nature, he brought away from it not only some truths but some fanaticism also, some superstition which injured the world as much as the greatness of the teaching helped. To get any reason out of the mass of incongruity we call human life, we have to transcend our reason, but we must do it scientifically, slowly, by regular practice, and we must cast off all superstitions. We must take up the study of the superconscious state just as any other science. On reason, we must have to lay our foundation. We must follow reason as far as it leads, and when reason fails, reason itself will show us the way to the highest plane. When you hear a man say, I am inspired, and then talk irrationally, reject it. Why? Because these three states, instinct, reason, and superconsciousness, or the unconsciousness, conscious, and superconsciousness states, belong to one and the same mind. There are not three minds in one man, but one state of it develops into the others. Instinct develops into reason, and reason into the transcendental consciousness. Therefore, not one of the states contradicts the others. Real inspiration never contradicts reason, but fulfills it. Just as you find the great prophet saying, I come not to destroy but to fulfill, so inspiration always comes to fulfill reason and is in harmony with it. All the different steps in yoga are intended to bring us scientifically to the superconscious state or samadhi. Furthermore, this is a most vital point to understand that inspiration is as much in every man's nature as it was in that of the ancient prophets. These prophets were not unique. They were men as you and I. They were great yogis. They had gained this super consciousness, and you and I can get the same. They were not peculiar people. The very fact that one man ever reached that stage proves that it is possible for every man to do so. Not only is it possible, but every man must eventually get to that state, and that is religion. Experience is the only teacher we have. We may talk and reason all our lives, but we shall not understand a word of truth until we experience it ourselves. You cannot hope to make a man a surgeon by simply giving him a few books. You cannot satisfy my curiosity to see a country by showing me a map. I must have actual experience. Maps can only create curiosity in us to get more perfect knowledge. Beyond that, they have no value whatsoever. Clinging to books only degenerates the human mind. Was there ever a more horrible blasphemy than the statement that all the knowledge of God is confined to this or that book? How dare men call God infinite and yet try to compress him within the covers of a little book? Millions of people have been killed because they did not believe what the book said. because they would not see all the knowledge of God within the covers of a book. Of course, this killing and murdering has gone by, but the world is still tremendously bound up in a belief of books. In order to reach the superconscious state in a scientific manner, it is necessary to pass through the various steps of Raj Yoga I have been teaching. After Pratyahara and Dharana, we come to Dhyana, meditation. When the mind has been trained to remain fixed on a certain internal or external location, there comes to it the power of flowing in an unbroken current, as it were, towards that point. This state is called dhyana. When one has so intensified the power of dhyana as to be able to reject the external part of perception and remain meditating only on the internal part, the meaning that state is called samadhi. The three, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi together, are called samyama. That is, if the mind can first concentrate upon an object and then is able to continue in that concentration for a length of time, and then by continued concentration to dwell only on the internal part of the perception of which the object was an effect, everything comes under the control of such a mind. This meditative state is the highest state of existence. So long as there is desire, no real happiness can come. It is only the contemplative, witness like study of objects that brings us to real enjoyment and happiness. The animal has its happiness in the senses, the man in his intellect, and the God in spiritual contemplation. It is only to the soul that has attained to this contemplative state that the world really becomes beautiful. To him who desires nothing and does not mix himself up with them, the manifold changes of nature are one panorama of beauty and sublimity. These ideas have to be understood in dhyana or meditation. We hear a sound. First, there is an external vibration. Second, the nerve motion that carries it to the mind. Third, the reaction from the mind, along with which flashes the knowledge of the object, which was the external cause of these different changes from the ethereal vibrations to the mental reactions. These three are called in yoga shabd, sound, earth, meaning, and janana, knowledge. In the language of physics and physiology, there are called the eternal vibrations, the motion in the nerve and brain, and the mental reaction. Now, these, though distinct processes, have become mixed up in such a fashion as to become quite indistinct. In fact, we cannot now perceive any of these. We only perceive their combined effect, what we call the external object. Every act of perception includes these three, and there is no reason why we should not be able to distinguish them. When by the previous preparations it becomes strong and controlled and has the power of finer perceptions, the mind should be employed in meditation. This meditation must begin with gross objects and slowly rise to finer and finer until it becomes objectless. The mind should first be employed in perceiving the external causes of sensation, then the internal motions, and then its own reaction. When it has succeeded in perceiving the external causes of sensation by themselves, the mind will acquire the power of perceiving all fine material existences, all fine bodies and forms. When it can succeed in perceiving the motions inside by themselves, it will gain the control of all mental waves in itself or in others, even before they have translated themselves into physical energy. And when he will be able to perceive the mental reaction by itself, the yogi will acquire the knowledge of everything as every sensible object and every thought is the result of this reaction. Then will he have seen the very foundations of his mind, and it will be under his perfect control. Different powers will come to the yogi, and if he yields to the temptations of any of these, the road to his further progress will be barred. Such is the evil of running after enjoyments. But if he is strong enough to reject even those miraculous powers, he will attain to the goal of yoga, the complete suppression of the waves in the ocean of the mind. Then the glory of the soul, undisturbed by the distraction of the mind or motion of the body, will shine in its full effulgence, and the yogi will find himself as he is and as he always was, the essence of knowledge, the immortal and all pervading. Samadhi is the property of every human being, nay, every animal. From the lowest animal to the highest angel, sometime or other, each one will have to come to that state, and then alone will real religion begin for him. Until then, he will only struggle towards that stage. There is no difference now between us and those who have no religion because we have no experience. What is concentration good for, save to bring us to this experience? Each one of the steps to attain samadhi has been reasoned out, properly adjusted, scientifically organized, and when faithfully practiced, will surely lead us to the desired end. Then will all sorrows cease, all miseries vanish, the seeds for action will be burnt, and the soul will be free forever.